the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, and it is now 10 a.m. on the East Coast of the United States. And it is time, therefore, for our weekly live stream. Good afternoon, Peter. I mean, it's almost early evening for you. Uh,
Yeah, well,
yeah,
as the weeks go by, I did think this is our first live stream where there's just a glimmer of sunlight left. So that's good. That's a good sign.
that's a good sign. You know, your image is really sharp, so your new computer is really doing the job. It's a very sharp image. So that's no one can complain. I hope they won't complain about the quality of our of
Well,
our
okay,
show.
maybe I shouldn't do this, but why do I have a new computer? I didn't buy it. Okay, it's just that when I do the Sunday program with George and Mark Sloboda, Peter, the quality of the picture is not good. Well, I said, okay, let's go back to the studio on Sunday. I'll be there. I get up at 5 o'clock every morning. I could be at the studio at 11:30, no problem. Well, of course, everyone, no. We don't have to go in on Sunday. No. We're going to keep the home edition. I said, well, get an IT guy and fix my computer, fix the rotor, fix me, or whatever
Right,
needs to be fixed,
right,
okay?
right,
Or get me a new computer, okay?
right.
And
And
they
you
did
gave
both.
me, but it's made a difference. It's a very good, very sharp image.
Okay.
But anyway, so today is the 24th of February. So it's the 3-year anniversary of the start of the so-called special military operation. We're going to talk about that.
Right.
And before we get onto that, we should talk a little bit about yesterday's election in Germany. And the first thing that really strikes me, I maybe it doesn't strike you, but um, I mean, it's a pretty bad result really for everybody. I mean, I think everyone has to walk away disappointed, with the exception of this phony baloney leftish party. But I mean, I have my suspicions that this was an artificial creation. But
A front, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's a front. It just came out of nowhere. It
It's
doesn't
kind
have.
of the it's a new version of the Green Project.
Exactly. That's exactly my view as well. It's like the new version of the Greens, a kind of pseudo left party. Doesn't seem to have a platform. Doesn't seem to have an agenda.
And it seems to be all in Berlin.
It's all in Berlin, and they're very very young people. So
Yeah, I saw one of the news agencies had a picture of someone voting in Berlin. What do you call them? Like ninjas? Okay, so all the headgear and the tail, putting in the ballot. Okay, I know democracy is safe in Germany. Okay.
that's right. The interesting thing is that in Germany, although not in federal elections, but in a number of the state elections and the European elections, the voting age has been reduced to 16. So it's 16 in European election. It's not yet 16 in federal elections. So we're going to have this wonder. I dare say it will be eventually 16 in federal elections. So we'll have essentially just young kids going off, trooping off, and voting. But what's extraordinary about this Die Linke, this left party, is that it doesn't have anything. It's we're against the fascists. We're fighting the fascists, which is the AfD. But that isn't. What are you going to do? You're going to start fights in the streets. Well, that's not going to get you very
Well,
far.
George, one of our viewers is actually on the same wavelength as you are. The term "left" is gross to me. I prefer student work. Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. The term "left" is been and "right" is so abused right now. Very good observation. We try to
Right,
stay away from that. Good point.
right. No, exactly. But they call themselves Die Linke. That's the name of
Die
the
Linke,
party.
that's what they're
Yeah,
called. Yeah.
it's the name of the party. But I think it came into existence in order to do in Sarah Wagenknecht,
And it did.
and it did, and who did have a platform, who did have an agenda, very strong point of view, a kind of a mixture of social conservatism and leftish economics. There was, it was an interesting combination.
And maybe controversially, a kind of DDR political sensibility.
Yeah, exactly. I think so. I think that's a very good point. And she herself, of course, was born in the DDR and grew up in the DDR. So it did the job. She didn't reach it as of this moment. She didn't reach the 5%. So again, that all of that makes me very very suspicious. But anyway, let's take a look at the result.
There's some very interesting things about this election, and we'll go
Right.
through them. But go ahead,
Yes.
George. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So here is. Can you see this, Peter?
Unfortunately, I can see Politico, brought to you by USAID.
That's right. Yeah. So here we can see there's this Politico, their numbers. You got CDU, CSU's 28.5. So that's why I said it's not a good result for them. They were expecting to get 30%. The polls were showing 30%, so they fell well short of that. The AFD 20.8, and though it's almost twice what they received in 2021, given the intervention on their behalf by Elon Musk, the big interview that he had with Alice Weidel on X, and all the tweets or X's that he sent out, and then, of course, her meeting with Vice President Vance, they had to have been hoping, I'm not
Yeah.
expecting, but at least hoping to get 23, 24, 25%. I mean, this is pretty much where they were in the polls about a year ago. So they haven't really made any breakthrough.
Well, I mean, we don't have any empirical evidence, but I think we can surmise that the external influence, as it is being called, by some of the parties, backfired.
Yeah, may well be.
May well be.
Right. The Social Democrats' historic debacle, 16.4%. So this is remember, this is the party. It was founded by Karl Marx. It was Karl Kautsky, Edward Bernstein, Willy Brandt, Helmut Schmidt, Gerhard Schroeder. It's a big, it's a very illustrious party. Very famous names are associated with the German Social Democratic Party.
It survived the Nazis.
And this is where it ends up, 16.4%, an extraordinarily dismal result. But we'll come to it. Anyway, the Greens, poor result for them, but they didn't.
Not poor enough.
Exactly. They didn't get wiped out. I was hoping that they get wiped out. It didn't really happen. So yeah, I mean, it's a big. I think that whatever they had around 13% last time. So it's just they've slipped, but they obviously have this core constituency that sticks by them. And then you have this Die Linke, 8.8%. It's like came out of nowhere, 8.8%. And then you have the Sarah Wagenknecht. It says 5%, but if we look at what the Guardian has it. The Guardian is more accurate. It says the Sarah Wagenknecht party has 4.97, and so that's not enough to get them into the Bundestag.
For me, it's just a little suspicious that it just a hair's breadth. But anyway, that's my
mine too. Mine too. I'm very suspicious of that. It's like it really is just a few thousand votes, and they suddenly that prevents them from being in the party. I mean, in the Bundestag. And so here we got 28.5 from CDU again, the AFD, and so on. The Free Democrats, who are always in every government, 4.3%. So they
except for the next one.
So they fell well short of getting in the 5%.
Well, I think with their involvement in the previous government, the ongoing government, is that they sometimes it's smart to play the spoiler, sometimes it's really dumb to play the spoiler, and I think they got the latter instead of the former this time.
Right. I think so. I mean, generally, when you provoke an election, you don't get rewarded for it, and it's like people don't really like elections. It just annoys them that you provoked an election.
And particularly, for people, the so-called conservative right, you're giving an opening to the AFD and all these other people. Okay, that's why you're disliked, because I mean, you're supposed to be for the status quo, right? Well, you're putting it in danger. Okay, I mean, there were a lot of mistakes made by all. Okay, it wasn't a good campaign. No, it wasn't very sophisticated at all. The current coalition was completely ineffective, didn't serve the people whatsoever. Immigration, the economy, Ukraine.
Right.
But then we're going to end up by the at the end of this segment that we're talking
Right.
about is that, so what
Right.
changed?
Well, exactly, and this is the point. When if we look at the seats in the Bundestag, so there are altogether 630 seats. So to get a majority, you need 316 seats. Well, the CDU has 208, and the Social Democrats have 120. So together they have 328. So they have the majority, and it was already clear from the statement of Friedrich Merz that he's going to form a coalition government with the Social Democrats. He doesn't need the Greens; they've got the votes. So that's it. It's going to be a CDU Social Democrat. So the Social Democrats, historic defeat, but they stay in the government.
Yeah.
Now, Sergeant Schultz has said that he's not going to be in the new government. He probably isn't. He's finished. His career's over. But I dare say, Boris Pistorius, the hawkish German defense minister, he's going to be in the government. I think he's now the kind of de facto leader of the Social Democrats. So that's the point. Nothing really very much is going to change.
Well, it's called the Grand Coalition. It's called the Grand Coalition, and
that's right.
They've already had 4 in the history of post-war Germany. Right. Historically, not very effective. Okay.
Not at all. Not at all effective, and nearly always leads to the rise of what they call the far right. It happened in the 1960s. There was the brief Grand Coalition, and that was the time when the National Democrats who were the sort of the bugaboo far right in Germany. That's when they rose as well, because once the mainstream parties are in coalition together, then of course elections don't matter because it doesn't. It's the same government.
But the difference between then and now is the AFD is not just a protest. Before it was always a protest. But now the AFD is created. It is now a pillar of the German political scene, and they were established in 2016.
No, I guess I don't know. Maybe it was I think it was more like 2014 or something. Maybe 2011.
We're in the ballpark. I mean, 10 years.
Yeah. Right.
Whoa,
exactly,
it's pretty impressive, everybody.
Yeah. No, that is that's right. But this left, this Die Linke, they have 6. They're going to get 64 seats. That's an awful lot for a new party. They're going to have 64 seats. I mean. And I don't know, what are they going to say when they're there? This is the pro-left. This is no question. This is like the Greens are the pro-war left. This is the pro-war left. That's why it's always a fake left that they've created, as the Greens were a fake, that it was a pro-war left. They've been consistently pro-war. I mean, I know they emerged in the 80s. They're against nuclear weapons.
Well, you and I remember them very, very well. That no resemblance to today.
No, exactly. But very quickly, they transformed into this pro-war party, because in the 90s, when they entered the government, it was Gerhard Schröder was the chancellor in 1998. They entered the government, and then you had Joschka Fischer, their leader. He was the foreign minister, and they were the ones who were pressing for bombing Yugoslavia. They were already then, 98. They were big on humanitarian intervention, and essentially humanitarian bombing. That's the Green. That's the Green. So I think they were always a kind of a fake left in order to head off the Social Democrats, and I think they clearly succeeded. They succeeded in marginalizing the Social Democrat left, which used to have people like Oscar Lafontaine, and he's kind of disappeared from the scene. But Oscar Lafontaine was actually genuine left, an anti-war left, but not the Greens. And these Die Linke are also the pro-war left. I mean, that's why Sarah Wagenknecht left the Die Linke party, because they basically supported, arming Ukraine. I mean, that was the rift that led to her departure from this.
It looks like now there will be a grand coalition. So, folks, everybody else, red, green, purple, they're just going to get paid to sit in the Bundestag.
That's right. That's right. And so here, this is kind of interesting. So this is the colors, and the reason I put in the colors is that we can look at the map. This is the map of the German vote. So there it is. The DDR, almost completely blue. The blue is the color of the AFD. with the exception of Berlin. And that's where that's the stronghold. That's where the Die Linke did well, and that's where the Social Democrats did okay. But then you look at the rest of it. You got little you can see little pockets of social democrats. The rest of it's all kind of the black, Christian Democrats, Christian Social, the CSU, and then a little bit of a breakthrough by the AFD in the West. It's sort of unusual, but they made a little bit of a breakthrough in the West. But otherwise, boom, you can see it's an amazingly divided country.
What was one of the interesting things is voter turnout was extraordinary. I mean, we haven't seen this in European politics for a very long time. For me, it's kind of an oddity because you had a very good voter turnout. If I'm not mistaken, 2 million new voters in this election here, and we get the same result. It's interesting, isn't it?
Right. But it's also very interesting that when you look at these maps, I mean, it's a little like when you look at the United States after the election. Boom, you look at it, boom, it's the entire map pretty much Republican. And then
if you do it by counties or congressional districts. No, excuse me, counties. It's a blue archipelago.
Right.
In a red city.
That's right. And then essentially, where are the Democrat strongholds? The cities and the university towns. It's just cities and university towns. The rest is all Republican. And again, when you look at that, you can also see where are these red and I guess these purple dots? The cities and the university towns. Which is a very interesting divisions that are emerging everywhere. I mean, Hungary is the same. I mean, you got Hungary, almost all of it is pro-Orban, with the exception of Budapest. In Budapest, solidly against Orban. It's just like a map, all Fidesz, with the exception of Budapest, where it's anti-Fidesz.
It's very much like the state of Washington, where you have like Seattle and Portland. They are radical, fanatically. I mean, it's the People's Republic. I mean, these people are, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they're just simply communist, okay?
Yes.
But you have all of these counties in the eastern part that are just really deep red. There's a movement that they want to become part of Idaho. They want to to get out because no matter what they do, they're shut out of political power, and so we might see that. There's nothing in the Constitution that states cannot change their composition. So
right. Except it has to be done. Except it has to be done by mutual.
Yes,
mutual
that's
agreement. Yes. No, you're right. But I mean, it's the same in New York. I mean, it's only solidly Democrat because of New York City. I mean, you take out New York City, and it'll be Republican. So upstate New York, solidly Republican. Anyway, so then Donald Trump. Before we do that, I do want to just show. I know we talked about it, but I have to show this when he was asked on Friday about the election. About the German election. Let me just show you if I can find this. It's Trump and his.
Everybody, this is Buddy. It's not Apple in my lap. Okay.
So this is news conference on Friday with Donald Trump.
Germany has elections on Sunday. What are your thoughts? What do you expect to happen in the elections on Sunday?
Who has elections?
Germany.
Oh, Germany. I wish them luck. We got our own problems. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
And then the Polish president Duda was there. It was a 10-minute meeting. He made him wait for an hour. Macron showed up today, and at the White House entrance, that there was nobody there to meet him except for his staff. Summer, how are you going to do, dude? I already said yesterday, don't take off your coat. You're not going to be there long.
As we were saying the other day, we're going to miss him when he's gone. I mean, there's just been nothing like this. Who's going to like them? Germany. Well, I wish them luck. No, we got our own problem. What do you?
Well, I don't want to read too much into it, but I mean, we have our own problems. Ergo, Germany is a problem.
I think it was just he doesn't care. I mean, it's
yeah.
like, why it's like to him it was like saying, well, there's going to be an election in Mali. What? Where? Mali. What are you asking me these? We got our own problems. I mean, that was his view of Germany. But anyway, he responded. So let's find out what he with to the result in.
Yeah, as George sets it up, my impression was he doesn't really know much about German politics.
No, that's right. So here he sent out this truth in up all capitals.
I hate all caps.
No, yeah, me too. But he does this. Looks like the Conservative Party in Germany has won the very big and highly anticipated election. So highly anticipated that he didn't even know about it. Much like the USA, the people of Germany got tired of the no common sense agenda, especially on energy and immigration, that has prevailed for so many years. This is a great day for Germany and for the United States of America under the leadership of a gentleman named Donald J. Trump. Congratulations to all. Many more victories to follow. So this is a kind of an interesting truth because he doesn't even mention Mertz's name there. He doesn't even mention, the Christian Democrats. Doesn't mention our traditional friendship with Germany. He mentions himself. As if it's about him.
He was congratulating himself.
He's congratulating himself. But the interesting thing is, because my view is still that Merz is going to have better relations with Trump than Scholz did.
Okay. Compared to Schultz, yeah, that's
right,
not a hard one.
That's right, because I do think that the Americans generally have better relations with Christian Democrats than they do with social Democrats. They've always had difficulties with social Democrats, but also given who Merz is. I mean, Merz is very rich, comes from a wealthy family from North Rhine-Westphalia. He was at BlackRock, made a ton of money. He's on the boards of I don't know how many corporations. A very, very, very rich man, and so that there'll be more of a rapport than with somebody who's just a professional political organizer in the way that Scholz was. However, in the statement issued by Merz was not exactly very warm. So let's take a look at that. What he said. So here's it's the count in the Washington Post. Says Merz said he was in close communication with European Union leaders about changing relations with the United States under President Donald Trump. For me, it is an absolute priority to strengthen Europe as quickly as possible so that we achieve independence from the US step by step. He told public broadcaster ARD after the vote. I never thought that I would ever need to say something like that on television, but after the latest statements by Donald Trump last week, it is clear that the Americans, at any case, these Americans, this administration, mostly don't care about the fate of Europe one way or another. That, you have to think about that. That's quite challenging words. I mean, that's quite, this is not someone who's, says, this is not diplomatic smoothness, the kind that you're used to from the likes of Stoltenberg and Mark Rutte, who take in their stride all the insults they get from Trump. They say, well, we of course, know that, we can have good relations with the United States. This is quite hostile.
Yeah, but it's very realistic too.
Yes,
George.
it's very realistic, but this is not someone who says no. I mean, you would expect him to say, well, I think relations had deteriorated with the United States under the incompetent leadership of my predecessor, but now things will improve under my leadership. But on the contrary, say no, we got to, we're in a desperate situation. We got to do something about Donald Trump. And then he goes on.
Or we don't have to do something about Donald Trump. We have to start doing something for ourselves.
Right, but but yes, that's what he's saying. I mean, the gist of it is still you have to do something about Donald Trump. I mean, Trump isn't just going to go away, and he's really, applying a great deal of pressure against the Europeans. So after the latest statement made by Donald Trump, it is clear the Americans mostly don't care about the fate of Europe one way or another. That's a pretty strong statement. They don't care about the fate of Europe one way or another. Remember, NATO is still in existence. I mean, there are American forces still stationed in Germany. And there are new American nuclear weapons stationed in Germany. So he says they don't care about the fate of Europe one way or another. So that's a that's a very very challenging statement. Even Sergeant Schultz, I don't think, ever said that.
No, of course not. Of course not.
So
He didn't have enough time to say it because he was licking boots shamelessly.
Yes. So here, and then he says, he also said that the intervention from Washington, a reference to Vice President J.D. Vance and tech billionaire Elon Musk expressing support for the far-right Alternative for Germany party before the vote, was, quote, no less drastic, dramatic, and ultimately no less outrageous than the intervention that we have seen from Moscow.
Well, I'm going to plagiarize George of yesterday. Good going, Europe. You call Russia the enemy, the Americans adversaries. Maybe they're the enemy too,
Right.
and you're constantly throwing shade on China. Good
Right.
going, Europe.
That's right. That's right. But this is no less drastic, and ultimately no less outrageous than the intervention that we have seen from Moscow. Now, he's not making clear what intervention from Moscow he's referring to. But you have to say this. This is clearly a after all, Trump had issued that I don't know, that truth, which after all he welcomed him, even though he didn't name him or didn't even name his party, just said, "Oh, it's the Conservative Party." And then he says this. Now, this maybe he said this before he knew about the truth, but that's certainly not someone who said, "Well, we're now turning a new page, and we're going." After all the bad relations that we've had under my predecessor, now we're going to go back to the good days, the old days of Helmut Kohl, and I guess even Angela Merkel were better days than now.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how Trump's truth was received, because I don't think he understands when he says the conservatives. I mean, that's again a misnomer. It doesn't really mean anything. I mean, the only thing conservative about these parties is that it's their name. Other than that, their policies are not conservative. I mean, I wouldn't deem them conservative.
No, I don't think so. But that's the thing. I mean, that these European conservative parties, they traditionally they're almost like they're the sort of Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan type Republicans. Every 4 years they promise they're going to do this, they're going to do that. We're going to bring immigration to an end. We're going to cut back on the size of government. We're going to do something about the debt. We're going to do about the deficit. You make all these promises, and then once you're in power, you forget about it until in 4 years' time, you do this. So it means nothing. I mean, what is a conservative party? Well, I mean, we've had conservative governments now. When was it? When did they win? The Tories won, I think, 2010. I think 2010. 14 years the Tories were in power in the UK. I mean, it meant absolutely nothing. And that's pretty much, it's the sort of Romney, Ryan, John McCain type conservatives. So that's why he's happy. He says, "Yeah, we'll just form a coalition government with the Social Democrats." So you just won an election, and you're going to form a coalition government with the Social Democrats.
Well, I mean,
you just got a historic drubbing in this very election.
And I mean, if you look at this all from a distance, is that what is causing this political instability? It is the late stage neoliberalism. So you have an election, you have a kind of a quaxic outcome, but what it does is it just puts back into the power the same people
Saying,
that have
right,
created the problem. Okay, I
they
mean,
create. Go.
so I mean, it's not conservative, it's not left,
No,
it's none of these things
it's
here.
none
It
of
is
those
the
things.
it is George and I had a lengthy discussion last week about it. Is that politics has disappeared? It is just it is policy
Right, right,
that is
right.
not it's not bolstered by
It's, it's
politics.
basically it's the status quo power. It's the status quo. So
Yeah,
there's basically,
exactly.
yeah,
And
exactly.
how to maintain the status quo and to perpetuate it,
Right,
okay? And
exactly.
then
So,
these pesky voters get in the way.
that's right, exactly. You got the same people, they're permanently in power. And then, yeah, exactly. The voters occasionally get very, very dissatisfied, often about this particular the subject of immigration. That's the one that usually just the voters explode. But sometimes economics, when they feel that they've been shafted by bankers and so on. So then they get you got to come up with some new formula, invent some political politician and create him and dump him there, like as you did with Obama. You just
Are you talking about
you have a crisis, you invent a political figure like Barack Obama. Oh, he's
Barack Obama or Liz Truss
Liz
or
Strauss, exactly. You shove her there and boom,
uh,
and then
Kayla Callas. Okay, yeah.
oh, you can't. This is why, and then Friedrich Merz, all the newspapers, the new chancellor of Germany, it was preferred. Well, he did poorly. He underperformed. He did worse than the polls suggested he would do. Again, 28.5. This is again the CDU, CSU. They used to dominate German politics. This is the party of Adenauer.
But don't you think this is like a trend? I mean, like Labor won this wonderful victory. No, they didn't.
No, they did not.
Okay,
No.
I mean, this is a trend. This is a
Right.
trend.
Right. Exactly.
And you can talk about the traditional duopoly, left and right, but they're all performing more or less the same way in
Right.
decline.
In decline. Then, exactly. And then when you have the decline, then you have pseudo parties kind of emerging out of nowhere. And then they get very favorable coverage. I mean, this Die Linke are getting very favorable coverage. Sarah Wagenknecht never received that kind of coverage.
Well, George, I mean, if we had enough money, we could have the George Party in
Yeah, I
Germany,
think so.
and it would probably do well if we had
Exactly.
the resources.
I think so. Because you don't even need a program or a platform if you just simply say, well, I'm anti-fascist. Whoa, well, that's a radical position. Whoa, you're really shaking things up. That boy, this is you're overthrowing the establishment by saying, well, I'm anti-fascist.
Well, I mean, also, I mean, this left party, they're all fascists. Okay, I mean, that's their contribution
Yes.
to political discourse.
Yes.
The Christian Democrats, the Social Democrats, AfD, they're all fascists. Okay,
Right. Yeah, no, that's right. And then the one I like is and they're also protesting about high rents in Berlin. Well, wow, that's pretty drastic. I mean, yeah, I'm quite sure rents are exorbitant in Berlin, as they are in Paris, as they are in London, as they are in New York, as they are in Moscow. I mean, in every big city in the world, rents are exorbitant. It's not a platform. That's not a political program that you don't like high rents. But that's their demographic. People living in Berlin, hanging out at these electro clubs or whatever, and, doing all sorts of, I don't know, making the scene in Berlin. That's what they protest. Hey,
well,
I don't
yeah,
pay these
but if you look at the campaign, like the rent is too high in Berlin. Yeah. But then Merz was on the campaign, immigration is a problem in Germany. Oh, really? Okay. Like, really? You finally come around to that. And
Right.
what's going to happen? They want to get a coalition together by Easter. What are they going to do about immigration?
Right. I don't think so, because once you've got this coalition with the Social Democrats, it's going to be very quick, this coalition, because they don't have to worry about other parties. They've already got the votes. Christian Democrats, Social Democrats are already above 316, so it's a done deal. I mean, they only have to worry about who's going to get what ministry, and that could take a little bit of time, but it's not problem, like where putting this party and that party in. But the point is that if you get to this immigration issue, the Social Democrats are not going to agree on any kind of a serious crackdown on immigration, because now they're going to, we're worried about the left. If we join with immigration restrictions, we're going to have the left breathing down our neck, because these people, these delinquer, they want unrestricted immigration. I mean, it seems like that's another part of their platform of no restrictions at all on immigration. And there's a constituency for that. Amazingly, there's a constituency for no restrictions at all on immigration.
And sometimes, George, there's simply no words.
There are no words. Exactly. So,
well, George, to finish off the discussion on this here, if you don't have any more slides, in the whole mix of this here, what's the alternative for Germany? Where do they stand right now?
That's an excellent question.
Where are they going to go now?
Yeah. Well, that's an excellent question, because I think their view is, well, we're out of it, so nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to change. We start campaigning for 2029. I mean, that's what they're going to do. I mean, Alice Weidel, she already offered to join a coalition with the Christian Democrats, and of course that would be they would have a very comfortable majority, Christian Democrats of the AfD. But of course, they maintain, oh no, absolutely not, firewall. But that's very strange, because we looked at that map. You're having a firewall against the entire DDR. That's the DDR. Pretty much, they swept the entirety of the DDR, with the exception of Berlin.
This morning, looking at the election results, I saw quite a few video clips of the leader of the AfD. She's very, very charismatic. Mm-hmm. Very good. It's very smooth. She's very smooth. And these other guys are just, like cardboard boxes. I mean, right. The Germans are not the most phlegmatic people. No offense, okay, but it's true. But he's got a nice touch to her, okay? Right. And it defies the extreme descriptions of them, of her and her party.
That's right. It's a very interesting juxtaposition, because she herself is from the West. I think she's also from North Rhine-Westphalia. She, also she trained as a banker, worked for a number of years in the Bank of China.
She's married to a woman? I'm not sure.
She's married to a woman, exactly. And they live in Switzerland with a couple of children. I don't know whether they're biological children, but they live with a couple of their children in Switzerland. Her wife or partner is from Sri Lanka. So she speaks fluent Mandarin, because she lived all those years in China. Also very rich, because she made a lot of money working at the Bank of China. So she belies the image of the AfD. You think these are sort of rough street people, and again, it's an interesting juxtaposition, because I think some of the other leaders of the AfD do come from the East. And they probably, if you see them, they may, Germans might think, well, I don't know, this is, they're a little bit of a problem. I don't know if I want to vote for these people. But she's very smooth, and because she's been to a number of universities, got all sorts of degrees and everything. So she speaks a very educated German, a university educated German. So she's impressive.
Well, also she was on a panel discussion, and she was just openly insulted, and she was water off the back of a duck. She just let it go. Just
exactly.
That's what why am I saying this is because, or mentioning it is because George is absolutely right. They're getting ready for the next election,
right?
And given trends, okay, George and I are not in the prediction business, so we've said this many, many times. But given the cast of characters that are coming to power, why do you expect things are going to get better?
That's right.
That's their card. That's the card they're going to play. Okay. Is it? I mean, can you see the poster? Is it getting better for you?
That's right. It's not going to get better. It's not going to get better, because and we can see already that there's no change. Yeah, yes, Merz says, well, we're going to get tough on immigration. Again, They always say
Well,
there should be.
and Europe has to stand on its own. I mean, you're not
Exactly.
original. You're not
But
original.
that's the thing. I mean, all the noises you're making is the noise, and we're going to come to that. The noises that the rest of European elite is making. We've got to stand with Ukraine. I mean, so this is the sort of bizarre aspect of it, which is that in the United States now you have an administration that is determined, publicly is determined to bring this war to an end. And the response of the Europeans and the response of Zelensky is, "Oh, please, please, let's keep it going. We got to keep it going. Don't end it. Don't end it. Mend it. Don't end it." It's like, I don't know. I saw a headline. I think I didn't watch it. Jimmy Dore, something like, no, don't stop the war. Like, don't stop the carnival. No, don't stop the war.
Yeah, it was interesting because that was hosted by Aaron Mate.
Okay.
Yeah. I just lost my thought, but yeah, I mean, my thought is that Merz, Starmer, Macron, you want to get into a staring fight with Donald Trump? Are you really serious?
Right.
I mean, if this was the first 4 weeks of the of Donald Trump's stay in the White House, maybe you could make that mistake.
Right.
But he learned a lot. We've learned now. Man, that was a question George and I had throughout the campaign. Actually, the last 4 years.
Right.
What has Donald Trump learned? Well, he's learned a lot. Maybe not exactly the things we hoped for,
Right.
but he has learned a lot. And like I said just a few minutes ago, Macron shows up at the White House. A staffer lets him in. Okay,
Right.
Duda waited for an hour, got a 10-minute meeting. Okay,
Right.
You guys get it's a clue. You get it? Okay,
Right.
You're not going to get anywhere with Trump. As a matter of fact, you'll just make him more rigid.
That's right. And this is the thing. I mean, we're getting to the point where Trump is making clear he wants this peace and he wants to bring this war to an end. Not like in 3 months' time. Not like 1
yesterday.
Month. He wants it now. He wants to end it right now. And Europe is now in this position of saying, "Oh, please, you got to keep it going." And then they say, "We're going to send 20 more billion to Ukraine, 20 more billion. We're just going to come up with wherever there's 20 billion, we're going to send to Ukraine." And then Britain today issued 107 sanctions against Russia, 107 more sanctions against Russia.
I saw a quick list of it before we went on. No computer gaming consoles can be exported to Russia now. That's where they're scraping the barrel. Scraping the barrel. And the Shadow Fleet. And they like that one, the Shadow Fleet.
The Shadow Fleet. So here, and this is, let me just, I want to show this, where are we? Yeah. I wanted to show this. This is the statements that are coming from the Trump White House. Again, that's just the tone. We don't have to necessarily take this very seriously, but that's the tone from the White House. This is from the Kiev Independent.
Which is probably not very independent, but...
It's probably not. It says, Trump team could strike a deal to end war this week.
Yeah, I saw
war this week. And then here we are. U.S. President Donald Trump is very confident that he will reach a deal to end Russia's war against Ukraine, possibly as early as this week. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said, Trump has repeatedly said he wants to negotiate a swift end to the war. Members of his administration held up, blah, blah. And then it goes on. Leavitt says, the president and his team are very much focused on continuing negotiations with both sides of this war to end the conflict. And the president is very confident that we can get it done this week. This Leavitt, yes. Yeah. And the U.S. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz will be, quote, working around the clock all weekend to get a deal and end this conflict with Ukraine. So this is ending the conflict. This isn't just this deal for extracting resources. This is ending the war. That's what they're planning on. And then, according to Leavitt, Trump is confident that Moscow is prepared to negotiate an agreement to end the war. He believes very strongly that Russia is willing to make a deal. He's fighting to make a deal. The president said he wants the killing to stop. He wants to stop seeing innocent men die, and he wants peace. And then, so anyway, let's watch this. We'll talk later. Now, the interesting thing about that is, again, that's what the Trump people are saying, and Trump himself has said, "I believe Moscow wants a deal. I think Moscow wants to end this war." Trump has said this over and over again. So the Russians don't have to say anything at this stage, because because Zelensky and the Europeans are doing all the talking. They're talking and talking and talking, and blah blah. And Zelensky, and then again there was this European procession to Kiev today, including Ursula von der Leyen, Governor Trudeau, and and sort of the variety of Baltic state leaders. They all trooped off to Kiev to express their solidarity, and they're wonderful. And then you had Keir Starmer, saying, we're standing with you, and then Macron. I mean, why is Macron flying to Washington? He's saying, please, 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 don't end it. You're going to look weak. You're going to look weak in the eyes of Putin. Do you want to look weak in the eyes of Putin? Again, not the right way to approach Trump. But the Russians don't have to say anything, because now this is infuriating Trump. Is saying, well, who wants this war to continue? It's not the Russians, it's the Europeans and Zelensky. And so it's, at the moment, from Trump's perspective, what's standing in the way of the war? Europe and Zelensky, not the Russians.
Well, okay, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because we've done it so many hours of it, but it's undefined, unclear.
Right. No, absolutely. I agree. No, I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But I mean, what's really interesting, I don't know who's doing the communications behind this. I would say at this point it's brilliant, okay? Because what's happening, the Europeans have their knickers all tied up in a knot. They're all disagreeing how to move forward. Immediately after the Riyadh meeting, Macron calls in all the European leaders. They look like complete fools. Well, the best we could do is decide to have another meeting about having another meeting. Okay, right. I mean, Trump is playing them like a fiddle right now, because Europe, we have to stay the course. But what does it mean staying the course? I mean, listening to all you guys, you all want to come and troop to my office and explain yourself. I don't know what your policy is. I don't think you know what your policy is. And I've already talked with my interlocutors. I've already talked to the Russians in Riyadh, and it seems like we're more or less on the same page. Why can't you be on the same page?
But that's right, because as we've discussed before, if it were, if we were talking seriously about coming to some kind of a deal in Ukraine, that would present problems for Russia, because then Russia would then have to say, well, what are they going to settle for? I mean, at the moment, it's still well short of their goals. So ending the war now means they've fallen short of their goals. But fortunately for the Russians, they don't have to make that decision, because essentially this decision is being made by the Europeans. Russians aren't going to stop the war. I mean, how can we stop the war if these people want to continue with the war? I mean, Zelensky wants to go on with the war. I mean, and Macron wants to go on with the war. Merz wants to go on with the war. Kaya Kallas wants to go on with the war. So how can we stop the war? So they can say, they're going to turn around to Trump and say, which we want this war to come to an end. So I'm surprised by how badly the Europeans have played it.
I'm stunned.
Right. Instead of putting Russia on the spot, to say, yeah.
Let's take his press spokesman. Let's take her at face value. So, at face value. So, it's possible sometime this week the United States and Russia will be at peace in some form.
Right.
Okay? And our America's European allies are still at war. How does that work?
It doesn't. It doesn't. That's why Russia isn't really saying anything. I mean, at the moment, I haven't heard anything really from the Russians, other than generally positive noises about Trump. But they haven't said, yeah, we're ready to settle. So that's why I thought what would happen is they say, yeah, we want to end this war, and then Trump is going to turn around to the Russians. Okay, well, are you ready to call it quits? Just end the war now, and then the Russians would have to be in a difficult position. But as things stand, It's the Russians who say, yeah, we're very serious about negotiating an end. And the Europeans are saying, oh, please, I want this war to go on, or go on.
Well,
Send more money, send more arms.
The Russian delegation to Riyadh was Russia's dream team. Okay, and you had Lavrov, obviously, foreign policy experts, and the head of Russia's sovereign fund. And I mean, George, this was a home run by any estimation. Is that they talked about money? They knew most people would pick up on that instantly.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
The ethnic mix of the oblast, blah blah blah. That's going to go like this for the Americans.
Right. No.
What is he? They talking? Right. No, you lost $350 billion in only 3 years. In only 3 years.
That's
okay?
Right.
And Trump is talking about rare earths. He's talking about Greenland, and it's not because he loves Greenland. It's just because one of the last explored areas for natural resources, the polar ice cap. The Russians are in the lead there.
Right. No,
and what and it's genuine. The Russians are just saying, the Arctic, the final frontier. We can work with you there. We don't have to be at odds there. We don't have to be at odds. And they're saying, that makes sense. Okay. I'm going to stay with my position. The rare earths in Ukraine is complete rude.
Yeah, no, I get it. Trump isn't just going for the rare earths. I mean, he wants a serious extraction deal. I mean, I'm sure.
What does Trump want, everyone?
Well, let's just say
he wants to do a reverse Nixon goes to China. That's what he wants to do.
Well, yes, he wants it. Yeah, I mean, no question. He wants the. I mean, I think he sees China as the, but he always did. I just wanted to. This is the slide that I wanted to show. When they talk about this constitution, that the constitution prohibits the holding of elections during martial law. If you look at the constitution, it says, should a decree of the president of Ukraine declare an introduction of martial law or a state of emergency in Ukraine, blah, blah, the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine shall hold a meeting within 2 days without convocation. If the term of powers of the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine expires while martial law or a state of emergency is in effect, its powers shall be extended until the day of the first meeting of the first session of the Verkhovna Rada. So what is true is that there is the martial law was declared by Zelensky, and according to that decree, they prohibited the holding of elections. But that's just simply that's just a decree by him. That's not according to the Constitution, which means that essentially the president, is saying, you can't. I'm declaring that there will be no more elections. Oh, that's democracy, and he's a Democrat. Well, how's it a Democrat if a president is just simply saying, well, we're not going to hold elections? And incidentally, there's a lot of these apologists for Zelensky are saying, even if we get a ceasefire, we can't lift martial law, because if you lift martial law, people are going to leave the country. Boom, you're going to have to open the borders, and then all the young men will just immediately depart from the country just in case the ceasefire breaks down, and they're going to be called to the front. So they're going to essentially, what Zelensky's apologists are admitting is that the martial law is not going to end even if there were a ceasefire.
Yeah, and Zelensky's not a dictator. Yeah,
okay. He's not a dictator. He's not a dictator. He's a Democrat.
Well, I mean, look, everyone. This has been so close to George and I. Closer to George and I than the vast majority of people that actually talk about it these days. Because George and I have been doing this. This has been our beat since 2014. I mean, go say back to the Orange Revolution, but let's benchmark of 2014. That was an act of huge illegality. Okay, and it has been compounded over and over and over again. The coup government came to power without a quorum in the Rada. There wasn't a functioning constitutional court that could answer some of the questions of the illegality, and it just compounds itself over and over again. So George and I are not surprised that Zelensky, their presidential decree, you cannot negotiate with Russia, and then his term expires and he says, I'm willing to negotiate. But no, it was your decree. Now you're no longer president. I mean, are you writing a new version of Catch-22 for us?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it's basically saying that, according to martial law, we can't have elections. You're the one who declared the martial law. I mean, in other words, you have said, we can't hold elections, and then that's used. Oh well, you can't hold elections. It's like you can't hold elections. It's just a circular argument.
It's like people can't live in Gaza because it's been decimated. Okay,
right.
Well, why is it decimated? And then the apologists for Zelensky, well, we can't hold elections because of martial law. Well, who imposed martial law?
Right, exactly. He imposed it, but they never admit that. That's why they say, well, according to the Constitution, there's nothing in the Constitution that says you can't hold elections. Then just there's nothing, whatever. You just find anywhere at all in the Constitution where it says you can't hold elections during martial law. It's
and that may be
he decreed the martial law,
and that may be part of Trump's Zelensky's pushing back against Trump. That's a bad idea. It's just a very bad idea. You're kissing his ass one day, and then you're kissing him on the lips the next day. It doesn't work. Okay, not with him. Okay, that's for sure. Okay, and so I think that there are people, maybe Trump himself, or there are people around Trump saying this Zelensky guy is a real obstacle because and the Russians have told us. And, their argument is kind of sound that he's not legally the president anymore. I mean, do we want his signature on something? Because the next guy's going to, well, that was illegitimate. We're not going to uphold this. I mean, I'm sure somebody around Trump is saying, this is going to get sticky.
Right. No, I think so. And I think why they're pushing him to sign this agreement. Again, I want to show what the Times, who claims to have seen the document. I think why they're pushing for this agreement, it says, well, if you want to continue with this war, you have to sign this deal. And then they're saying, hey, this is not a we don't want to sign this deal. Well, they want to sign a deal. Sorry, we're not going to keep supporting you. So here it says, U.S. pressing tough demands in revised deal for Ukraine's minerals, and then it says. Ukraine is seriously considering a revised American proposal for its vast natural resources. And then it says that the terms of the new proposal, which is dated February the 21st and reviewed by the New York Times, call for Ukraine to relinquish to the United States half of its revenues from natural resources, including minerals, gas, and oil, as well as earnings from ports and other infrastructure. So it's a pretty comprehensive deal. And then a similar demand was made in previous versions of the deal. And then Ukraine had been floating the prospect of a partnership with the United States on its valuable natural resources as a way to persuade Mr. Trump to provide additional support for its war effort. Mr. Zelensky has also been seeking security guarantees for Ukraine, a condition that was absent in the first draft agreement presented to him last week, prompting him to decline to sign the deal. And then, so they got this deal. Incidentally, as I said before, 50% is actually a very good deal. I mean, that's it's as good, if not a better deal than anything that the Saudis have or any of the Gulf states have. You got 50%. The Americans put up the capital, the resources, the brain power, everything to drill for the minerals. I mean, and Ukraine get 50% of the revenue.
Well, George, there's a European country that can do that too. It has capacity to do it, the technology to do it, and they're being frozen out of the game. It's the Germans. Okay, right. And that's another, backhand, to the Europeans. Right. You want the war to continue. We want to make money.
Right.
Okay,
That's right.
and of course, like I said, the Russian team, Riyadh, knew exactly what buttons to press,
right. No,
and
they,
and and the what the Europeans do, they're just always hitting delete and turn off and over. They just, I've never seen anything so uh,
right.
out of touch.
Right. Right. I mean, I agree with it's kind of a reverse of the Nixon China gambit. I mean, because I think that's a consistent theme with Trump. It was there
Trump.
in 2016. He never saw Russia as any kind of an
Absolutely.
adversary, and that's why he was so annoyed with the Europeans who kept pushing this on him, and that's why he said, "Well, if you see Russia as such an adversary, then why did you sign this gas deal with them? I mean, they can't be that bad if you're signing these gas deals with them, and they can't be
And
that
you're making money, and we aren't.
you were making money, we aren't. And if they're that bad, if they're so scary and so terrifying, why don't you do more with your defense? Why aren't you spending more on your military?" So that's why he was so exasperated and annoyed with NATO during his time in office. But he was thrown off his game because of Russiagate. I mean, I think I think he obviously has come to realize that he pursued policies that he didn't want to pursue during his first term, very hostile policy towards Russia, which was a direct result of Russiagate.
Well, and George, and again, to tear a page from your script. So, Trump's thinking is that, okay, you Europeans see Russia as an enemy, but you buy their very cheap natural gas in huge quantities,
Right.
okay? But you want to keep NATO going, but the Americans subsidize NATO so you can have a 6-week vacation. Huh?
Yeah. That's
Huh?
exactly. But the Europeans are now in a very in a completely unwinnable position, because if they had any sense, they would be talking peace, and they would be discussing what are the terms on which we can settle this, and then we can start the haggling and then the negotiation, and that's a really difficult piece.
And George, Russia has sailed through all of the sanctions in really good shape. Okay, there's some annoyances out there. I won't deny it. Okay, the Russian economy is bigger, it's better, it's more efficient, and Donald Trump saying, "I want to invest." Okay, and the Europe, no. We want to spend more money on defense. We're going to cut social welfare. We're going to hurt our citizens. Okay,
Right.
because of virtue signaling. Okay, there is no geopolitical reasoning behind the European position whatsoever. I would say there's no moral one as well. Okay, and all it is a organizing mechanism idea to keep the European project going. Okay, and and caution to the wind. I mean, and because of this approach they're taking, they are only bringing this the dreadful end to this dreadful project sooner.
Right. The thing is, but it is, as you said, it's an immoral project because they want to keep a war going in which
In the
somebody
name
else,
of democracy.
yeah, in the name of democracy, but somebody else is doing the dying. So we got to keep it going, and somebody else is going to be doing the dying. Somebody else is dying there, and so you're begging to keep it going, and then and they're not even able to answer the question. Okay, well, what's the objective? What are you trying to accomplish here? What would you settle for? What would you agree upon? But they're not able to do it. We got to go to put Ukraine in a strong position. We got to. I mean, some of them are just saying outright saying we're going to defeat Putin. So they're going to defeat Russia. So all this time,
Okay, defeat Russia. Well, what does that mean?
it doesn't mean anything. They haven't figured out. They haven't figured it out. I mean, other than, we've got to bring Putin to the negotiating table. But you've been saying that for 3 years, and you're still not, still accomplishing it. So that's why it's an immoral position, since you haven't really spelled out what you would settle for. What are you looking at?
I'm looking at, because we're on the topic and I don't want to forget it because it's an absolutely wonderful question here. It's pretty much up at the top here.
Mhm.
It was 1 hour ago. So go up to 1 hour ago in the questions.
Okay.
And I'm going to slowly read it, and George will catch up with me because it's long and I want George to take each one of them.
Mhm.
Good evening, Peter and George. I'm curious about your predictions. We try to stay away from predictions. We
Right,
build
yeah,
cases.
exactly. We don't like
We
predictions.
build cases, okay?
Right.
Number one, do you think the deal between, hang on here. Oh, something
No, that
popped
that
up
was
here.
excellent.
That's
I
it?
don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how to do
George will
this.
fix that.
Yeah.
Number one, do you think the deal between U.S. and Russia will ultimately keep Zelensky as leader in Ukraine? That's the
Mhm.
first one. That's a good question. No, I think that Zelensky's out no matter what.
Mhm.
Okay,
Right.
that's my
Yep.
position.
Mhm.
Now, again, what is the time frame for that? I don't know. Okay, but he's not going to be as they like to say in diplomatic parlance, he's not a partner. He's not going to be a partner, at least for the Russians. Do you see it, George?
No, I
You
don't.
keep
I can't. I know. I can't. I'm
what you
not
need to
able to
do is you
scroll
have to
up.
put your
I'm not able.
all you have
Sorry,
to
but
do is put your cursor over the
no.
comments and then move up.
It
Okay.
doesn't work. I'm doing that. It's not
Okay.
working.
Well, okay. Here's the second. Okay. Do you want to let me ask you it again because I'd like your opinion and stop fiddling with it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. I see. Okay.
Do you think the deal between the U.S. and Russia will ultimately keep Zelensky as leader of Ukraine? Go ahead.
No, I can't. Okay. No, no, this is okay. No. Okay. No. This is now.
Maybe it'll just go away.
No, it's not going to go away. No. 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 Okay, go on. Go with the question. I mean.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to answer that question, or do you want me to go to the
No,
second
yeah, no,
one?
because I didn't hear it, so I was
Okay.
fiddling
Okay.
around with
Okay.
it.
Do you think the deal between the U.S. and Russia will ultimately keep Zelensky as leader of Ukraine?
For the time being, I think he'll be, but I think there's going to be pressure on his on him to hold some kind of elections.
Okay.
But yeah, I think.
Well, I cannot see in any universe how he's going to get on the good side of Donald Trump again. Donald Trump is going to be with us for 4 years. Okay. Zelensky, he's got days and weeks. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
All right.
that's
All right. Second
yeah.
question. Do you
Mhm.
think that Russia will get all of Kursk back before or with the deal?
Well, it depends on the time frame. I mean, if an agreement will come relatively soon, then that's going to be part of the deal. I mean, if it's going to if there's going to continue then these negotiations or negotiations about negotiations, then I think Russia will get it back before any kind of a deal. But if it's going to be soon, then obviously the Kursk is going to have to be part of any sort of.
I don't think so. I just think for the Russians will say it's a non-starter. Next point. I think that is just too.
But physically they have to. But physically they have to then. They have
Well,
to
I mean, if
the
a deal
Ukrainians.
is, that means cessation, stop, you can go home. We'll let you go home. We'll let you go home. That
Right,
would be the deal.
well,
The best deal they're going to get, we'll let you
right,
go
right.
home.
But if they say we're going to go home, they're going to ask for something in exchange. Otherwise, then it
No,
just
I
goes.
don't think they have any leverage here. Okay, they just
Well, then
don't.
it goes on. Then, and essentially, the fighting goes on. I mean, if one thinks about it, the fighting goes on means essentially arms are going to still continue to pour into Ukraine. I mean, that's where it gets very difficult because if the fighting goes on, then that infuriates Trump. Trump wants to bring it to an end, and then for the Europeans, that's the dream come true, which is the war continues. That means we can keep pouring in arms and supporting Ukraine. So
Yeah, it's a game of chicken. It's the Europeans in a Volkswagen and the Americans in a Kamaz truck. You don't know what a Kamaz truck is? Check it out. It's big. Okay.
well,
All
it's
right.
true,
Let's get. Go
it's
ahead.
true, but at the same time, I mean, you have to do it. I mean, you have to get the Ukrainians out. You have to push them out. We can't just talk about it. You have to actually physically do it, and that hasn't been done. So that's
Trump
why.
will tell them to get out. Europe, you stay in quarters, okay? And Trump says get out. We know the out.
Right, but then
It's,
okay, but if he okay, all right, but okay, but that's possible. I mean, Trump could do that.
the point is, it's an excellent question. George and I don't have a good answer because it's a moving.
Right,
It's a rolling floor, and I'm
right,
agreeing
right,
with George here. It's
right,
complicated. That's why it's a really good question. Let's go to
right.
the
No,
third one.
that's right. Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
go to the third one. Will
Mhm.
Russia get all of the oblasts that joined it by referendum? Absolutely yes.
But that's a difficult because then but you still have to. That's a war that has to then continue. That means the war continues. The war then continues because they don't have. I mean, basically, when you look at the Donetsk, that's 2/3 of it is under Russian control. 1/3 of it isn't. Same with I think with Kherson and
Son,
Zaporozhye.
I don't even think they have the capital.
That's right. So that means the war goes on.
Well,
That's
again, so Zelensky, as he hangs on to power, I'm going to throw my lot in with the Europeans.
right.
I just don't see it, George. I just don't see it. I
No,
just don't see it.
but
And
especially
and the amount of leverage the United States has over Europe is extraordinary, and it was by design, and the
yeah,
Europeans went along with it. So sorry, you got what you wanted. Okay, did you ever think it was going to be turned against you? You fools! You
yeah.
don't
But all right.
understand
I
the
mean,
first
yes,
thing
it has.
about politics. Okay.
That's true. It has leverage, but that means for Trump that you have to agree to a ceasefire on the current line of contact. That's what Trump would go for. He's not. Trump is not going to give Russia the obelisk. He's not going to do it. I mean that's just not realistic.
Okay, let's be a little nuanced here. I'll re-ask the question, and then I will answer in a slightly different way, genuflecting in George's direction.
Okay.
Will the Russians get all of the oblasts that joined it by referendum? Eventually, yes. That will be my answer.
No, well, it's eventually. All right, I don't know. Then I'd say I don't know whether they will eventually. But if we're talking about in the short term, in the immediate, if we get there, if we actually get there, I don't know if we're going to get there, but that's clearly Trump's plan, which is end the war now. In exchange for Russia, we give them all kinds of deals, all the economic deals that you talked about. We'll invite you to join the G7. Come and join us. We'll lift some of the sanctions. We're going to lift some of the sanctions, and we're going to take you to treat you as a partner. We're going to say you're partner in the Middle East, and so on. We might even consider some kind of a security conference. I doubt whether that's going to be.
Now you got my attention. You got my attention.
Well,
So
they might. Yeah.
that is a deal maker. Everything else George said, it's just like,
All right, maybe.
okay.
All right.
This is three brilliant questions. Why? And I'm sure George is going to agree with me. Ending this thing is a whole lot harder than starting it. Okay. And this is something that I hope, and hope dies last, is somebody explaining this to Trump.
Right.
That these, I think it was a writer that writes about geopolitics. The Moon of Alabama reposted it. I mean, it was like long about these are the complicated issues that all have to be addressed.
Right.
Okay, George and I enumerated on quite a few of them.
Right.
But this question is really very smart because it's a lot more complicated to end a war.
Right. It's extremely complicated, and all the pitfalls now. But the issue of the security conference, because again, the Russians will say, "Well, we want to, with this Helsinki," and Trump will say, "Yeah, sure, let's do it." That's the kind of thing that would appeal to Trump. The difficulty there is to get everybody else on board, get the Europeans on board, because they might show up. But if all they're going to do is rant and rave at Russia, then it's not going to accomplish anything.
Yeah, they're going to go global Karen on everybody. I think I don't know if anybody saw it on Twitter. I said Europe is like the mother-in-law that everybody hates. Okay,
Yeah.
and that's what they are. I see a comment here. Where is it? I want to needle George a little bit here. George is very attentive to detail, almost to distraction. I absolutely disagree with you. Okay, George goes into thick description. Okay, it takes a lot of work to do it. Okay, but
Right.
this is the service this podcast provides.
Right,
Okay,
exactly.
all these blowhards that
Right.
go talking about. They read one blog or listen to some. And they're like, no, George just gets it. George gets it really well, okay?
Right.
And that's why we have our back and forth all of the time, because it's hard to argue with facts, George.
It's hard to argue facts, and these are complicated issues. I mean, it's not a kind of either or. But you can just sort of settle it and say, well, this is going to happen or that's going to happen. We don't know.
And we'll work on it later.
Balls up in the air.
We could take care of it later. No. The Russians are in no mood. They're in no mood.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That's why this is very, very critical. That's why, I kind of stiffen up when his press secretary says it'll be done this week, and it's like I cannot imagine how that's.
That's exactly. I did think this is an extraordinary way of speaking, but nonetheless, it's not wholly out of keeping with Trump's spirit, because Trump has been now saying, "Yeah, I believe the Russians want peace. I believe we can get peace very quickly." I mean, that's
okay, George. Then let me throw this to you, and this is, again, this is why I like doing it with George more than anyone else, because I am actually thinking when I'm talking to him. A lot of other conversations I can't say is the case here, but up front, the goal is an agreement with the Russians to end the conflict in Ukraine. I think that's clear to everyone.
Right.
But to get there, does Trump need to break the back of the Ukrainians and the Europeans? Because that's what it looks like.
That's what it looks like. Because at the moment, the Europeans and Zelensky are being obdurate. They're not playing ball with him. Because what he wants from them is some indication that they intend to bring this thing to an end. Russia said, yeah, we want to bring this thing to an end. And so he wants the same thing from them, and said Macron and others are telling him, no, we've got to keep this going. And that's not appealing to Trump. Trump wants to end it. Now, I think obviously there's a vanity aspect to it. I think he wants that Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, it's like he's got everything else. He doesn't have that Nobel Peace Prize. I don't think he's going to get it.
Well, I mean, as a sidebar, and this shows you just how blankety blank petty these Europeans are. It was Sikorsky saying, "Well, the Europeans control the Nobel Peace Prize." Ha 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 ha. Did you see that?
I didn't see it.
Yeah. Here's Sikorsky. Okay. God, what a toxic plague on the European project. We should thank him. Okay.
Yes.
He's
yes.
Such
Exactly.
an obnoxious person.
And his wife, Anne Applebaum. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Everybody. I've been going through the comments, in a very cursory way. I have 4 dogs. I have 2 dachshunds, Buddy and Robbie. I have 2 chihuahuas, Buddy and Apple. Okay, I think I'm the only one here that got all the names right. Okay, I do appreciate the interest and concern in their names and their colors. Okay, but those are the names. Okay.
Yes. But as I point out, not you, I point out that they are the ones who are maintaining this ferocious stance towards the tip jar. And
they're very European about it. Yeah,
exactly. So I was thinking, like, when Elon Musk sent out this email to all federal employees, which is like, what would you say you do here? Can you set out the 5 different things you've accomplished in the past 7 days? You sent this out. So I was thinking about, Buddy and Apple, send me this email. Can you put down the 5 things you've accomplished in the past week? That in a way, that's their view. The tip jar, that's not one of the things that you have accomplished. So I think that they're taking a leaf out of Elon Musk's playbook.
Well, I mean, it's really interesting because, obviously what Trump is trying to do is to reassert executive Article 2 of the Constitution, the prerogatives, the powers and prerogatives of the executive branch, which have been just farmed out over the decades. That's where we get the deep state. Okay, and if J.D. Vance, that was his message to the Europeans. His message was the bullseye of his message was the European Commission. See, what you do is, the executive branch is empowered by voters. Okay, voters do that, and all executive power. Read the Constitution; it's pretty clear. All executive power is going to the president. That's it. It's like one line.
Yeah, that's right.
These people around Trump, they're very literal about that.
That's right. It's no question. It says that Article 2 of the Constitution, all executive power is vested in the president. But this is why it was very interesting that Vance delivered this address, and particularly talked about freedom, the condition of the state of freedom in Europe. And that's why I was surprised that Friedrich Merz chose to attack J.D. Vance, because he could have used Vance's speech as saying, "Yeah, I mean, we're Christian Democrats. We believe in freedom. We're free speech. We're on the free speech." Instead, he denounces Vance for interfering in the sacred European political space after the Europeans had all interfered in America. I mean, remember the American election, Trump-proof, and they openly rejoiced in 2020 when Biden became president. They rejoiced. They were absolutely gleeful that Trump was gone, and they were convinced that Trump's never coming back. So it's a little bit much for them now to interfering in our. And again, I would have thought you got a Christian Democrat who might have seized this opportunity to try to extend a hand to the Trump team.
Christian Democrat, those are just words.
Those are just words, but
it doesn't describe anything. Okay, in the context,
it doesn't. But it also makes me think that. That people in the past have expressed some skepticism about Merz, including Merkel. Merkel didn't think much of him, and that may be the reason
he dispatched him.
Exactly, she sent him because he had seniority over her, and then she managed to essentially oust him and become leader of the CDU in the Bundestag. Eventually, the leader of the CDU nationally. And then exactly, just sent him packing, and then he left. He left politics and decided to make a ton of money at BlackRock. So his initial pronouncements suggest that he's not a very good political operator. Merkel was actually a pretty good political operator. She lacked any kind of a vision of Germany and what she wanted to do.
Again,
she was a smooth operator.
Absolutely reinforces. Okay. Who have we said this about? Gorbachev, okay? He was a smooth operator within the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, okay? He knew when to elbow, he knew when to kiss up, he knew, that's, being a political operator within a hermetically closed system, it takes talent, okay? But it doesn't mean you can make a good cup of coffee.
That's right. That was really the problem. That during her years, she kind of just let things just drift. I mean, she was just drifting, and so Germany has
on every single major policy issue, she was on the wrong side, like Joe Biden.
That's right. Anyway, let's take a look at what.
Okay, George, we're at 123. I don't want to go black screen.
Right, we got some time. So, but
okay,
I
warned you.
Yeah, that's right. But remember, that we still got some time. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, we have Stone River. Thank you very much, Stone River. It says, why do the media report that Merz, quote, won when no party won a majority and a coalition government will have to be formed? With all due respect to democracy, nobody today knows with certainty what that coalition will be. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And we were talking about this earlier on. just like when after the British election, they declared that Keir Starmer had won a landslide victory, when his performance was worse than than Jeremy Corbyn's performance in 2019, which itself was a historic debacle. The only reason Keir Starmer is prime minister is that the right split, the vote on the right, the Conservatives split, because of Nigel Farage's reform. And so once the right split, essentially that gave Starmer a landslide, but it wasn't a victory in any sense. It's not like, when you win a major landslide. So they're saying this all merits did with. It's historically a very poor performance by the Christian Democrats, 28.5%, very, very poor. And he can't form a government other than with either the Social Democrats or the Social Democrats and Greens. I don't think it's enough. The Greens by themselves would not be enough.
We started this podcast. George started this podcast by saying everyone lost.
Right. Exactly.
That's true.
That's right. It's a poor performance by everyone. So you're absolutely right. This whole merits. Hail the conquering hero comes. No, I mean this was a poor performance. He has to form a coalition with the Social Democrats, who have just been treated to a humiliation, the worst performance throughout history. The historic German Social Democrats, this is the worst performance ever. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. No great.
Well, it's part and parcel. What I said, I think this time last week or sometime last week, is that the century of humiliation, Europe's century of humiliation.
Right. That's exactly right. And so we have Ivan Grozny. Who is Ivan Grozny? Good to see you. That's a great name, Ivan Grozny. And it says, good evening, Peter and George. I'm curious about your predictions. That's the one I think you read out. Yeah. You already read that one. Okay, good. And then we have Kick567 says, is America in its third republic? It seems every 80 or so years, from 1781 to 1861, that was the first republic, independent of the British Empire. Second republic, 1861 to 1945. And then the Civil War, state rights were taken back, and America became the world's empire with the Holocaust as the American state religion, building the Holocaust Museum in every state in place, and churches, making U.S. officials visit and supplicate Israel. What are your thoughts? It's a very good question. Where this goes. I mean, I tend to think that that it's always very difficult to make predictions about major historic changes. Only many years after the event.
Well, this sounds very much like the fourth wave, the Bannon fourth wave.
Yeah, exactly. But it really, you can't tell. I mean, they've been. What I think is true is at the moment is that Trump is doing something no one has done before. Trump is revolutionizing the modern democratic state. We'll see whether it succeeds. But he's trying to do what other leaders, generations of them have promised to do. They promised to address the bloated state. They promised to cut back on running up huge debts, and it promised to address all the various national security issues, foreign policy issue. We'll see if it succeeds. I mean, he is basically a lame duck president. So that's the problem. Maybe somebody will come after him and will continue his agenda, or maybe not. So, I think the jury is still out whether this is a historic presidency or just a flash in the pan.
Well, it has all of the makings of being a historic presidency. Having a historic presidency doesn't necessarily mean it's successful. Okay, right. And that's the jury is the jury's out for a while on that one there.
Right.
Yes. As George and I pointed out, I mean, he has 18 months to leave his mark. Right. Okay, yeah. And and whatever that mark is, okay, for the rest of his term, as modern presidents have done, he'll be a foreign policy president. That's not his forte. It's like, I mean, he has to do it because of his position, but that's not his calling. His calling is not that. As I've pointed out, on inauguration day to the present, he thinks of everything in terms of building, constructing, dealing, and I have to say, I was completely wrong. He got his nominees through, except for Matt Gaetz, basically.
Right. He probably, if he'd stuck by Matt Gaetz, he would have probably got Gaetz through as well. I mean,
I'm still of the feeling that was a trick. It was Trump never put any energy behind it. He didn't. He didn't. Throw down the gauntlet and every single member of the GOP in both houses.
I think so. I think so. But he did after that, and now he's appointed Dan Bongino as the number 2 man at the FBI. Again, you could see he's going for broke. I mean, he's really
he's going for broke. That's exactly right.
That's right. And then today,
and someone like Dan Bongino. That guy's a cancer survivor. Okay, do you remember it? I mean, yes, he looked bad. Okay, he was really struggling. Now this guy feels like he's been tapped. God has tapped him, and he's going to go for broke. He's not qualified to be. What do you mean? He's the most qualified. You know why? Because he never had a high position in the FBI. That's why he's qualified. That's why he might be effective. Kash Patel is going to use him like a bulldog.
Right.
I don't know, but he's a New Yorker, right?
Yes.
He doesn't take any guff. Okay.
No.
It's like that Holman guy.
That's right. Exactly.
You're going to be separating parents from their children, and I loved his. Well, when you go to prison, you're separated from your family. So yes, okay. Holman he terrorizes liberal journalists because he'll just say, "Yeah, that's what we're going to do."
Yes, that's right. That's what we're going to do. No, I remember when after he was nominated. And before he assumed the office, I think he said in an interview, said, "Hey, if you're in the country illegally, start packing." So that's just boom. I mean, you're right. Holman and Bongino, they're very similar. Yeah, they're street people. They're street guys. They talk like street guys. It's not a university educated language that they speak. So. But and then today, Trump sent out this truth saying, "Oh, Elon Musk is doing a great job, but I don't think he's being aggressive enough." After all the attacks on Elon Musk, I don't think he's being aggressive enough. So clearly, he thinks Musk needs to up his game, even after all the attacks.
As it's already been pointed out here, Trump he's a lame duck by definition. He's going to wreck everything he possibly can within his power. He's just got started. Got started, everybody. Okay. And he doesn't want a distraction like the Ukraine war. He doesn't want a distraction called Europeans. Okay. He doesn't want the distraction. That's why he's gotten down to business. Okay. And he's going to turn his attention to the governor up there, up north. And that's in the cards, everybody. Governor, you better pat your bags too. Go back to Cuba, visit family.
That's right. Anyway, Peter, it's been a very good conversation. Thank you, everybody who has joined us. Thank you for all your questions and comments, even if I had some difficulties manipulating our all the chats. But thank you, everybody. Thank you those who have contributed to the tip jar. The dogs, really is a case of let sleeping dogs lie, because bringing the tip jar up with them, that's not a good thing to do. Boy, that's scary. What would you say you do here? So anyway, but thank you. We will be back next Monday at same time, and then you can join me tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern time for another solo live stream. So thank you. See you then. All the best. Goodbye and bye, Peter. Bye, Apple.